Thank you, Sheriff. Our first order of business this evening is our prayer led by Commissioner Huffine and our pledge led by Commissioner Carriger.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, we come before you tonight with thankful hearts and deep appreciation, dear Lord, for all the gifts that you provide us and all the blessings that you give us each and every day. Dear Lord, extend another blessing on us this evening as we do the work of the county, especially from a financial standpoint that impacts all of the citizens. Lead, guide, direct us, dear Lord, in this decision and everything we do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let us address our flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the roll call screen, please. Go ahead and indicate your presence at this gathering this afternoon. All right. Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll indicate Commissioner Fitzgerald is here as well. Can you do that? There he is. Easy now. All right. We have 12 present and 3 absent. We do have a quorum. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is approval of the agenda. You have the agenda before you for this evening. It's a special call session. Only the items on the agenda can be considered this evening. Yeah. Last 3 items. Yes, under new business, we have 3 items that we do need to consider, but we'll have to suspend the rules for those 3 additional items under new business.
I'll move to approve the agenda. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda, and we'll get that approved, and then we'll come back to suspend the rule on the other 3 items. All right, so we have a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor of that motion, or signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. The 3 items under new business, if we want to go ahead and consider those to suspend the rule, if you all want to review those.
I would move to suspend the rules so we can consider those 3 items.
Right. Motion made by Commissioner Jones to suspend the rule on those 3 items. Do I have a second? Commissioner Carriger seconds the motion. Questions or discussion before we suspend the rules? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The rules are suspended, and we will consider those 3 items under new business during this meeting. All right, we have no public comment this evening. Our first item for consideration is the appointment to fill the vacancy of the constable in District 1. Commissioner Harris will open the floor for nominations.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Charlie Banks to fill that term out for the election. He's not a candidate. Keeps the other two candidates on a fair playing field.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wheeler?
I'd like to second that nomination.
I have a second for the nomination. Any further nominations?
Move nomination cease and we elect by acclamation.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger that the nominations cease and Mr. Baines be elected by acclamation. Do we have a second? Who was the second on that? Commissioner Huffine? All right. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Congratulations, Charlie. You'll be our new constable for a couple of months. If you'll come up to the podium, the clerk will get you sworn in. If you, yeah, we will need a little bit of encouragement there. Yeah, if you want to go down there, swear. Take it to me.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
I was constable from 1988 to like 1996, and Roy Phelps, county clerk at that time, he swore me in. Remember Roy Phelps?
That's been a while. That's been a few years ago.
Really?
Charlie, we do appreciate all you do for our community. He served as the solid waste director for many years, and of course, he's a Nolichucky Fire Department chief and the president of the Washington County Fire Association, and we appreciate you covering these 2 months for us to the election, Charlie. Thank you so much.
Raise your right hand and after I read this statement, you say, I do solemnly swear that I will well and truly serve the state of Tennessee in the office of constable, will cause the peace of the state to be kept to the best of my power, and that I will arrest all persons that go in my sight armed or offensively, or who commit any right, affray, or other breach of the peace, and will use my best endeavor on complaint made to apprehend all felons, rioters, or persons righteously assembled, and if such persons flee or make resistance, I will pursue and make hue and cry according to law, and that I will faithfully and without delay execute and return all for lawful process directed to me, and that I will well and truly, according to my power and ability, do and execute all of the duties of the office of constable. I do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of Tennessee and the United States.
I will.
And I have been asked to present this to you.
Okay.
Charlie, Patrick didn't have anything to do with that. We want you to know that right now. But we appreciate your service, Charlie. Don't think we don't. We really do. Thank you. Patrick may be in for it. I don't know, Well, Commissioner Wheeler, it looks like most of my work is done. Looks like this is a budget committee report meeting to me. So I guess I'll turn it over to Commissioner Wheeler for our budget committee items and let him take it from there.
I'll be glad to introduce them and we'll call on a little help with the next year's budget. First thing you have are minutes at this time of year, 4 meetings, from the 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd, and June 6th. Pages 1, 16, 17, and 18 of your packet. If you have any questions, those we'll take those. Then we have resolutions for your consideration. The first is Resolution 22601, Resolution amending fiscal year budget 2021-2022 regarding final reallocation for fiscal year 2021-2022, found at page 19 of your packet. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and and cast your vote and lock it in. All right. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 11 yes, 0 abstained, 1 no, and 3 absent, and the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Resolution number 22-06-02, a resolution amending fiscal year budget 2021-2022 regarding Washington County Schools budget amendments, found at page 22 of your packet. This also comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Malone. Questions or discussion?
Call for questions.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, and the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, the next resolution in the packet is resolution number 22-6-03, a resolution making appropriations for the various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of the Washington County, Tennessee for the fiscal year effective July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. This does come as a recommendation from the committee, Budget Committee. However, you all didn't get this till yesterday afternoon, so I would suggest that, Mr. Chairman, that we might have some discussion or presentation from the Director of Accounts and Budgets or the Mayor prior to someone making a motion to approve with any amendments that need to be made.
All right. Mr. Meredith, do you want to go ahead and answer questions or?
I guess we could, Mr. Chairman, I guess field questions, but we were advised that we weren't going to be making presentations.
Okay. So I guess we'll just field questions of what has been out of the budget book presentation that we received. Commissioner Harris?
I've got a question for Mr. Meredith. I've tried to, of course, I just got this book last night, I guess like everybody else did, so it's hard to study it a lot. You get it the night before. But I also want to say I appreciate the Budget Committee because I know they put a tremendous amount of work in. I think we're very fortunate to have the group of on the Budget Committee here. I think they did a fine job. I don't know who, I know in your line item, Mr. Meredith, yourself, I've noticed a 10% raise, I guess, you put in. I mean, is that something that came from the Budget Committee to give you that, or is that something that you and the mayor put in, or where did that come from?
Well, assuming given the fact that where we are today, then I would have to say that the Budget Committee did recommend that because it is in the budget that's coming before you. If you want to know why it's at 10%, we had some conversations with some Budget Committee members. When I joined the county in my role as Director of Accounts and Budget, my salary was set at the same as the general officers of the county. The trustee, the assessor. Statutorily, the Director of Accounts and Budget cannot make more than those individuals, unlike other employees in the county. So when we made the census adjustment last year to the minimum salaries for those officials, I didn't receive that. My salary didn't get adjusted. This is adjusting it to what the minimum salary is for the current general officers.
But they're elected officials and you're not.
But that's exactly true, Commissioner.
Yeah.
My employment agreement is that I am paid the same as the officials
Who approved that employment agreement?
I guess when we were hired in, under Mayor Eldridge's regime. So-
I never voted for it, but.
Well, sure.
Another thing I've seen is also it looks like if I'm doing my numbers right, I mean, it looks like your bookkeepers are getting around an 8% raise. When other county employees, like the register of deeds office, county clerk, different ones are getting 5%. How did we
There's
come
overtime.
about that? Was that something that the
We-
budget committee
we-
done, or is that something that you done?
They have a 5% raise. The incremental difference that takes it to 8 is for projected overtime, for them to meet the needs of the county, okay? And it works out to a little, right at about $2,000 per person.
So they're not getting an 8% raise?
They are not getting an 8%
So the
raise.
8% that I see in here, if I'm doing my numbers right, is just for overtime.
That's correct.
So
They
we
have
also-
a
we've
5%.
hired additional people for you. You've got 6.
They have a
now.
5% raise.
You have 6 employees now versus 4, is that right?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's correct.
Okay, so we had 4, we've got 6, and we're still doing overtime.
We hope that it ceases, but we have overtime on the books because they all worked during COVID when everybody else was off. Not everybody,
I
but
may be the
so,
only person that cares about this, but I'm gonna bring it up. I sent you an email yesterday, and I think all the commissioners got it as well. But just this past week, 2 days ago, we had county employees that went to get fuel. And they couldn't get it because the bills hadn't been paid. And you've got a 10% raise in here for yourself and an 8% for your staff. And I know you took great problems when I brought that up before about your staff. I'm not complaining about your staff. You know, you're the boss, the mayor's the boss of that office. You all should be running that office. And when we're paying bills late, we got county employees that can't even get fuel. It's an embarrassment to them. It's an embarrassment to the whole county. And I brought this up, not just this one time, I brought it up for the last months, and nothing's been done. Yet you're wanting a 10% raise from this county. I think that's ridiculous. There's no way I would vote for it, and I would hope that the rest of the commission would vote for it. If we're giving 5% to people who are working in these other offices, that's what you deserve, not 10%. And I appreciate the budget committee, but if they're the ones that put it in there, I disagree with them. I don't see how you deserve a 10% raise. Am I wrong about the fuel being cut off this past week?
I don't know anything about
You know
that.
nothing about it.
No, sir, I don't handle the invoices.
You know nothing about
They-
the zoning office couldn't get fuel.
No, sir, I do not.
Mitch.
No, look, Commissioner Harris, you probably need to look at TCA. Our purchasing agent is solely in charge of invoices.
He does a fine job.
As soon as invoices hit accounts payable, they are out the door within
Let him
within
answer.
3 or 4 days.
So you're sitting here tonight telling me you know nothing about our zoning office last week couldn't get fuel.
Have not
Nothing.
done them,
Zero about it.
Nobody brought it to my
Did
attention.
they go to the highway department and get fuel because they couldn't get it from the county credit card?
Commissioner Harris, I
Well,
don't handle
you know
the fuel man account. Mr.
Let me ask you one
Shrewsbury.
more question. How much time do you actually spend in the office versus being at home? Do you keep up the difference between being at home? You've got people working
Sure.
at home,
No, I,
people working in the office. I mean, what's the differentiate there? What would you guess?
what's your question?
What's your percentage of spending time at home doing work versus being in the office? Because you're working from home.
From my total work hours in a week,
Yeah.
which it can be anywhere between 50 and 60,
Yeah,
probably
Yeah.
10%
At
at
home.
home.
yeah. When you're at home, can you pay a bill?
Pardon me?
Can you pay a bill when
No,
you're at
sir.
home? No.
No,
So you
sir,
can't
I
go
don't
online
write,
or-
I don't pay the bills. We have a segregation of duties
Your
that have
employees that
people
work
to
in
do
your
that.
office, how much time are they spending at home?
At this point in time, very little.
So on Fridays, they don't stay at home? Several of them go home
Oh,
on
I
Fridays?
think, I
for-
do
for a
think
home
some
day?
people will take some flex
Yeah.
time off.
Yeah. Was it time off when you're at home? Were they getting paid when they're at home? You've got a problem in your office. I let it go at that, and I brought it up before. It's obvious you get all upset when I bring it up. You're not doing your job, Mitch. If they're gonna give you 10% raise and out, they're doing the whole county, Washington County, a disservice.
You were hugely informed, sir.
Okay, I am, yeah.
Commissioner Huffine?
I've got a question on the salary there, man. You said statutorily you cannot exceed, correct?
That's correct.
So is there any statutory minimum there? Or, I mean, you're saying the minimum
For-
based upon your original agreement, there's not anything statutorily?
There's nothing in statute that defines the director of accounts and budget salary other than it shall not exceed the minimum for the general officers of the county.
So if we took it back to 5% like everybody else, there's nothing statutorily against that occurring?
Contractually, there may be, but statutorily, no.
Commissioner Tester?
There may be.
Well, that depends on what happens. Contractually, there could be, yes, sir.
What do you mean there could be?
Well, when you-
There's a written agreement or there's not?
There is.
Commissioner Wheeler?
The resolution, I requested and got the resolution when your position was created and you put in, it doesn't speak to salary. Did the
Was
commission-
that the resolution for Director of Finance or Accounts and
No,
Budget?
Accounts and budget.
Gotcha.
Is that the one you would say?
I was employed as the Director of Finance and Administration. When Ms. Webb resigned, the commission named me as Director of Accounts and Budget, and so we had to roll the salary back a couple of $1,000s because I was making more as the Director of Finance and Administration.
And that's the position you're in now, Director of Accounts and Budget.
That is, yes, sir.
Do you, and the only reason I raised my hand, Mitch, is you mentioned it could be, and that's not real good when you're a lawyer sitting here.
Well,
But we've been through this several years where it's been brought up that there was some agreement. Is there a written agreement, and can you give us a copy of a written agreement?
I have the employment agreement.
Okay. And I assume that's something you can provide to us fairly
I think
quickly.
I could probably pull that out within a day or so.
Okay. Did the commission ever vote on that agreement?
I suspect it was handled like the employment of any other employee in this county, Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
whether they're the chief deputy, for the sheriff or any other position.
I don't disagree. Those are normally handled year to year.
Mhm.
So I think it would be highly unusual to have an agreement that tied a salary to something in perpetuity. In fact, I've never heard of that, so I'm just wanting to, if it is, I think we ought to be aware of that, rather than it coming up that it might be, which suggests, that we could do something wrong here and not even realize we're doing it. And I think it's time that we get that squared away, that there is or there isn't and what it is. And that, that doesn't affect what I want to do tonight, but it does, I think we need to do that going forward. And again, the reason I raised my hand is hearing that it might be, I'd like to clear that up.
Commissioner Huffine?
So just in disclosure here, I also noticed that the Director of Codes and Compliances was in at 10%. Those are the only two discrepancies that I noticed that were above the 5%.
I may have some insight there.
Well, I thought you was just raising your hand to speak next. Go ahead, Commissioner Lone, if you, oh,
I do recall a budget meeting. It was the one where we were upstairs in the conference room outside the mayor's office where Ms. Charles spoke about specifically her department. And I think it does include, perhaps for herself, and a couple of other employees, it includes what I would refer to in,
That is correct.
it includes
A market
not
adjustment.
only a cost of living raise, but a market adjustment. And I think that is a department in an area where we've needed some adjustment for some time. And
Just wanted to make sure if somebody saw that.
right.
We're very clear with it, no more questions.
Yeah, one of the things, just to kind of
Yeah, that's correct.
speak to the broader thing, I mean, one of the things I think budget sought to do was, in addition to certain key positions, CDL drivers and other areas, including perhaps codes compliance and the planning department, there were some positions that required what I would call market adjustments. And we looked at various worksheets that reflected a market adjustment, just the employment environment we're in right now. But then additionally, what I think the budget committee did earlier this week was we made sure at a bare minimum, each employee was getting a 5% cost of living raise. But I thought that might help speak to
And I think that's very helpful, not only to myself, but I think across from a transparency standpoint.
Right.
If someone's just looking at this from a thought line, they wouldn't have an understanding of it. Now they will. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
I guess I got another question. I don't know if this would be for Mitch or the mayor, but Mitch's job is an important job for the county. Would you say that one of the most important jobs, I'll ask you, Mayor, of Mitch's job is paying the bills on time? Is that an important job?
Paying the bills on time is important.
Well, I'm just a lonely commissioner of 15. And if I know that last week the county employees could not get fuel because we hadn't paid our fuel bill, Mitch doesn't know that.
I know it.
You know it?
I do. And I'll just say that it's misconstrued. The fuel man bill money was wired to fuel man. We had 3 accounts. Fuel man was able to post 2 of those accounts on time, no disruptions, and wasn't, for some reason, able to post the 3rd. As of today, I don't think we still know exactly why that is, but they had the money because it all came in on one wire transfer.
Well, has this not been a recurring problem for the past several months?
It has, and it's with the exact same vendor, and Willie has worked very diligently over the last few months, found an alternate vendor to provide the same service. Fuel man operation does more than just provide a credit card for fuel. You can do that in a number of ways. It also tracks mileage and vehicle use and provides a lot of information, that's useful to monitoring the use of thousands of dollars worth of fuel. But they're not the only people to do that. In talking with other counties, some of those very close to us, they have also had trouble in the last 18 months with the fuel man and are moving to a different platform, as we are likely to be as well. But hasn't happened yet. Meantime, it's going to purchase fuel.
It's a problem.
Yeah, they're a problem vendor, and then steps have been taken to address it.
This ain't the only vendor we have a problem with. We've had power bills that we're gonna get cut off, bills that wasn't paid, other things, so it just adds to it. I mean, if you agree that we have power bills that wasn't paid, did that pay late charges and all?
Several months ago, and all those, trying to do that.
Yeah.
So the county moves out their money.
No, we will not credit this.
They were.
Records, because I've asked them, and I've never seen them. That's not a true
I have.
statement. Well, send them to me. But somebody needs to get on the ball.
Okay.
Pay the bills. And I've said that before.
Working with vendors is fortunately department's responsibility, as Mr. Mayor has just said. He's got a lot to oversee, and if people that pay those bills, once they hit it. And they hit on time, they were paid on time. The vendor wasn't able to properly credit it, and they canceled a card, 1 out of 3 accounts. And when called and asked to reinstate it, because clearly they had the money, they wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't you say it's pretty embarrassing on the county employee trying to get gas and they can't?
It's disruptive, no question. So in response to that, we're changing the amendment.
Commissioner Wheeler?
In the budget committee, we talked about doing this 5%, trying to get everybody at least the 5% because of the cost of living and with everything that's been going on. With that said, we left our budget committee meeting, our last budget committee meeting, asking that those raises be put in place. And as part of that, the mayor suggested that we not look back and to what happened last quarter, for instance, that we say the cutoff was if they were getting a market adjustment in the budget, then we would not adjust any COLA. Otherwise, we would give them the 5% raise. With that in mind, I think we have, there could be others I don't know, but it was easy to spot one because there's only one employee in that department. And I'm afraid we've not done that on that and may need to make an adjustment. And Mitch, I want you to check this for me, but the assistant in the county attorney's office, the paralegal, there is no 5% raise there. Now I'm aware that there were adjustments during the year, but that would not meet what the budget committee said.
That is correct, and Attorney Wilkinson and I have traded some emails on that, and she'd calculated a number, and it actually should have been a little higher than her number, so we will need to adjust the paralegal's position before we get too far into next year.
Can we not just adjust that 5% tonight?
Yes, I've got the number, and we could make that adjustment, yes, sir.
Okay.
Let me pull my email back up, and I can say exactly what it's going to be.
Let's, before we move on too much here and get too deep in talking about adjusting or amending, I feel like we've had quite a bit of a discussion, and I'd like to consider a motion of some kind. Commissioner Huffine?
Well, before we do that, I think one of the, if not the key responsibility of everyone sitting here at this table is to be good stewards of taxpayer money. And at any point in time, we recognize something within the county that is not performing or may not be at the level we need it to be, to be construed as misuse of taxpayer money. We need to address that. As the chairman for the last several months, seems like an eternity, our communication task force, it's become apparent to myself and to most of the members on the task force that process has not worked, has not achieved what this commission originally laid out. Quite frankly, didn't achieve the goals that we laid out for the first 6 months. It's my recommendation we remove that position from this budget. If once the new commission convenes, if they deem that still a key priority, they can try to reconstruct a process that would be hopefully effective. So with that, I would move that we remove that position from the budget.
What position is that?
Director of Communication.
How does the committee feel about this?
I was gonna second that. And on the committee. So,
Well, are we amending the budget because we don't have a motion?
Yeah, I'll amend that motion to move to approve the budget with that one adjustment. To your point, sir.
Okay.
Get this budget approved.
Mr. Chairman, if I ask, is that a recommendation from the committee?
You want to hold the members of?
No, I'm just asking.
So your motion is to approve the resolution on,
Approve the resolution of the budget with that one amendment to it being removed. That one line.
Mitch, can you tell us what line item that is so everybody can have a chance to review that, please?
It's see, in the budget workbook, page 29, account 51,900, 189, other salaries and wages.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask that we divide the question, because people may want to vote one way on one issue and differently on the budget as a whole. So I'm going to request that we divide on that question.
All right, we'll need to stop then to divide the question. So you seconded that, correct, Commissioner Jones? All right. All right, so the question was to approve the budget, and when Mitch gets us the line item for everybody to review in the budget book and what page it is on.
I'm sorry, it's on page 29, it's account 51,900, 189, other salaries and wages.
All right, how much is that?
That's what I'm looking for, because there's multiple employees in that line.
Yeah, how much is the total line item? That's what we're dealing with?
Well, yeah, that's what you're doing. The total line item is 106,676.
Yeah, if I have this correct, the dollar amount would be $52,492.
I'll have to look back at the file. I don't remember what the split were. You had it right there. Probably very well.
All right.
So the dollar amount would be $52,492, Chairman.
All right, so we're going to have to deal with this motion to divide the question. Do we have a second on that motion? Motion to divide the question. Do we have a second by Commissioner Harris? All right. Commissioner Wheeler?
Question on dividing the question, if there's a motion to approve the budget, then it would be appropriate then for a motion to amend the budget before that's voted on.
Yes, if there was just a motion to approve the budget, you would actually offer amendments to that. And so, and you just vote the amendments up or down, which customarily we do.
Could we not treat this as that Commissioner Huffine has made a motion to approve the budget, and then he's made a motion to amend the budget?
We could, if that was his motion.
Well, I'll restate my motion
There's two motions.
in that manner. Simplify the rule.
So the first, are you voting to approve the resolution, Commissioner Huffine? Is that what it would be first?
Moving.
And then presenting an amendment to the budget?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Jones, are you still a second on that?
I am.
All right, so the motion at this current moment is to approve resolution 220603. Now, we'll open the floor up for discussion or amendments.
I think there's an amendment on the floor, Mr. Chairman. Or do you want him to restate it?
Well, there really isn't, because we're not dividing the question now, so that has fallen away because the question has really already been divided. So Commissioner Huffine, if you'll come back and,
All right, I move to amend the motion that we remove under 51,900-189, the amount of $52,492, which is listed as communication coordinator.
right. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. All right, we'll open the floor up for discussion on the amendment. Commissioner Carriger?
As I understand it, this is a recommendation from the communications committee. Okay. Have you communicated with the employee why they're gonna lose their job?
Not directly. We have laid out a list of objectives. We had a recap that, if you'll refer back, I think our April minutes was brought to this commission that we have not achieved any of those objectives. There's not been any objectives achieved since that time.
Commissioner Wheeler?
I would add to that, that it was discussed that if the commission's objectives couldn't be reached, that the only alternative was for us to take budgetary action, that we did do that.
And the only thing I want to make sure is that the employee knew what was expected of them, and they didn't deliver. That's.
I'll tell you, the communication task force made that very clear, it has been documented.
Commissioner Davenport?
Yes, however, we never discussed and voted on this particular amendment. So it is not a recommendation from our task force.
It's a recommendation from myself
Yes.
as part of.
But that, just to answer,
I'll clarify that.
was that not your question, Commissioner Carey? Also, when we discussed this, we put a communication director in a few years ago. And we had a list of objectives. And I'll agree that some of those have not been met. But I also think about what would we have done during COVID when we were meeting on computers and setting those things up and getting things out to the public and getting all this. What would we have done without that communication director? We have to be flexible to meet the needs of this county. And I think without that position and without the person in that position, we would have went 2 years. Things slowed down enough as we know. And we adapted. We thought this thing was going to last a couple of months. It ended up lasting a couple of years. And those kind of things. So I still look at that as a very valuable position. Although, could things be better? You know what? I have a job, and there's things that my boss points out to me that I could do better. And I think we're all in some of those situations. So I would be very hesitant at getting rid of this line item.
Commissioner Huffine?
I would agree with that statement, and I think that's something we all took into consideration when we sat down and laid out the objectives for this year. And when we reviewed those objectives, and none of those were made. And I think, most companies have annual performance reviews. If you were doing a review of COVID, probably a passing grade. You would do a review today, it's not a passing grade. And I think, are we going to continue to spend the taxpayers' dollars for less than performance?
Mayor?
That's what I feel accountable for.
That's your.
That's what I feel accountable for.
Mayor, I know you've not had a chance to speak yet, and this is your employee. Is there anything you'd like to?
Yeah, absolutely. I work in that space every day, and this in particular individual, that y'all discussing eliminating, does a multitude of things for Washington County. He's very talented, experienced, and at dealing with the media, when things need to be communicated. You look at the information that is contained in the government, and think about how the media treated Washington County government in the past. And I think if you look over the past several years, you'll see, a trend where this government is viewed as professional, astute, and the communications that go to the media from the work of this great body is communicated very effectively and without a lot of drama across the county. And people want a government that runs without all the drama. But I'll just say this: that day in and day out, there are dozens of things that are accomplished, including setting up your room for the meeting. Managing many other issues that, I would say that need to be accomplished somehow. So, this commission wants a different, type of person. And I guess that's, consideration, but, there's just a lot of activities that go on that people that work day in and day out in the operation have no idea.
Commissioner Wheeler?
I hate that this is coming to discussion about
an individual, but maybe that was inevitable. And I will say this, I think this individual brings a tremendous amount to the table, has done a tremendous amount for us during COVID, and has done things for this commission. And I had hoped that before we got here today, that some discussions would be fruitful to have this arranged where this person would be going to another department, where I think she's been incredibly successful. However, this is about a position that we created to help us with one of our top 3 priorities, communications. And I would have to say, as a member of both of the task force that have tried to do this, that it has not been effective. And from a position of dealing with that, what I think we have failed at in one of our top 3 objectives, there have been things done, but overall, I think it's been a very much a failure, that we need to go a different direction. We've tried to get help with that, and that has not come to fruition. So I think this is the only thing the commission can do to change directions. And I think we're at a point where we need a major change in direction here. I'm still hopeful, going back to the individual, that will get rectified in the next month. And it's a shame that it wasn't rectified for tonight. But it's not, and I still think we need to make that change in direction. And since the motion's been made to amend the budget to make that change in direction, I feel obligated to the taxpayers to do that so that we can begin to make some inroads on that objective.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I understand what everybody's saying, but, only problem I've got with it, I've been the person already placed in the job for this gives me the job. I don't know how we do it. You said we did, but it should have been done, we still,
yeah, we don't have a job right now.
I don't know how to do the job. I like to do stuff. And that, that's your person's move to another place, got a pretty big enterprise. This person be used somewhere else, I think this person should be used somewhere, we just, live by it. That's not the fact. I understand what you gotta say, what you're talking about. I think this person already replaced the job, another job, or anything. All right, go ahead.
Commissioner Williams, you go ahead.
I was at the workshop when the need to promote Washington County came up, and the communication director was created. And I've served on many boards like a lot of them. But I guess my expectations were to promote Washington County and create us as a much effective county in the upper East Tennessee. And I think that can be done in a better way. Susan was very helpful during COVID, but she was really hired to promote the county. And I think that's lacking. And the mayor has refused to listen when we discussed this with him. And he will have to admit that. I didn't record our conversations, but we didn't hire her to be the mayor's assistant. We hired her to be the communication of the total county. And I think we could do better for less. And I'm more than glad for the current communication director to be moved, but it shouldn't be on this line item.
Commissioner Malone,
Mr. Chairman, I call the question on the amendment.
I haven't got to speak yet. I'll have to come down from the podium. Commissioner Wheeler, would you take the podium, please?
Hey, Vice Chair, I think the question's been called. Noticed I waited until Greg was out.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 minutes, isn't that right? Oh. Yeah.
I just want you to know, a lot of times it really doesn't matter who does it behind the scenes work some days, you know? We really don't think of those folks, but I just want you to know before we take this vote what Susan does. For the commission, I don't know what she does for the mayor. He says that she does a fine job there. This week I was on a conference call with Susan, a Zoom call, trying to update us to bring us up to being able to vote by September 1st to move us from these voting boxes to our new iPads will be invested in. We're also getting ready to change our voting system. It's done. That's her problem. That's what she's been doing. As far as coordinating this room, setting up the microphones, doing all those things, she's a great help to the commission. You know, just in those roles. No, y'all don't have to deal with that. You know. Also, sheriff's folks, we couldn't do that. We couldn't get that done. But as far as scheduling this room, I've kind of leaned on Susan to do that more. And I appreciate her efforts to do those things. But I couldn't let the night go by without letting y'all know what she does for you all that you really don't know about. So I guess that's all I have to say. Sorry to bring you up there, Commissioner Whitaker, for that amount of time. And not oftentimes do I get to come tell you what's going on. I don't know who will do that when she's got me. I don't know. But I do want you to know that will affect you. So that way, when you make your decision, you'll make that decision with all the things that I know. You'll be able to make the decision. I appreciate y'all.
Mr. Huffine, if you'll wait till we swap places.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler said he hoped I didn't have anything else to say tonight. All right. So you had something else to say too, Commissioner Huffine?
Thank you. You know, Commissioner Fitzgerald brings forth a very, very solid point, as do you, Mr. Chairman. Hate to see anyone lose their job. If agreeable, I would like to change that to where we keep a month's salary in the budget for this individual. That would take it from 52,492 to 48,118 approximately. And to Commissioner Fitzgerald, hopefully in that time, that would allow for some sort of transition. I think that this individual has demonstrated a ability to excel in one area of the government from a communication standpoint, and may very well have found a niche that they fit in very, very well. That would be a win-win for that individual and a win-win for that department as well. So if acceptable, I'd like to amend my amendment to that.
Yes. You accept the amendment, Mr. Jones?
I need to hear it
So-
one more time.
I would change the dollar figure in the budget. We were going to remove the 52,000, instead leave a month's salary in there. So now that 52,000 comes to 48, ballpark 118. I'll leave that up to Mitch to get the exact dollar figures there, because I'm just calculating on 12 months. So that would allow a month of employment. So the whole month of July, so close to 6 weeks there of a notice, if you will. And as I said, I think there's been a demonstration in one area that she has excelled in. And if that department has a desire, I think simply by freezing up this money, they came back to us that, would be pretty easy to find the money for them. Does that explain?
That does, and it does open up the possibility that some of those functions that you mentioned may be preserved, and if they can be kind of negotiated as
Yep.
part of that. I would second that amendment. I don't think anyone is saying that this person hasn't found some good work to do. I think the issue is that the work isn't fulfilling the vision that we all had 3.5 years ago when we had the big old posters out. We were picturing kind of the vision and message we wanted to broadcast, as well as improvements in the way that we had internal communications within the county. And so I will second that motion. It's a good creative option.
Mr. Davenport?
Yeah, I want to be very careful when we speak and we say, that's not what we had in mind. All right, I'll speak for me. In my mind, I wanted a communication director to change the perception of this county. Not just 3-4 bullet items. And I hate to say it, but this is what I've seen. I went to a workshop one time, and this position was railroad, and talked about termination at that time, because that's what we're talking about here. All right, I spoke up at that time, and if you remember, and I said, I don't stand for that. I don't stand for this. I feel like some of this is personal attack. I think part of this is because the mayor did not do what some on this board, this commission wanted done, and this is the angle to get rid of. But the perception of this county, don't take too much credit for being a commissioner when someone else is getting our perception changed by the work that we're doing and getting it out there. In my opinion, this person has done that. And I would be very, very careful, because we'll backslide very, very quickly without that position.
Commissioner Jones?
I take it a little bit personally that you might think that I would be as unprofessional as to take a grudge out in a setting like this around something as important as this. I feel like under my direction, and certainly watching Commissioner Huffine, the issues we take are that we had really quite specific interests and directions that we wanted. We, the commission, brought the person on. We, as commissioners, took leadership of that task force and drove some very cool and specific and creative projects that didn't come to fruition. So I feel like and what you heard us lamenting in workshops years gone by now is that we've consistently not seen those specific creative projects brought to fruition. And so I think that is the basis for this judgment. It hasn't got anything to do with anything bigger or better than that. And I do think that judging the broad scheme of effectiveness is very subjective, and what you perceive and what I perceive and somebody else perceives are very different things. But Commissioner Huffman and I really tried to lead with very specific ideas and visions about what external communication could look like for the county, what internal communication could look like for the county. And those objectives, which again are written down, this was really action item oriented, were not realized.
Commissioner Malone?
Yeah, I recognize communications, as an important point, and certainly when we first all met together in a workshop, communications, internal and external, was one of our key objectives. And while I think there have been some improvement in terms of the perception of the county in the public, I think there's been so many opportunities missed. And I don't, for myself, I don't imagine that we would just stop trying to communicate. I think what I'm hearing from those on the communications task force, some of them, is that we want to try a different approach. We tried this approach. It's had some modicum of success, but I think I wonder sometimes, and I'm not a social media person. I'm not on Facebook or Insta, whatever, but I don't understand why the county is not. And that would seem to be an easy win or success. Now, I know there's a lot to it, to having it, and monitoring it, and keep up with it. And quite honestly, it may be more than one person can do, along with all the other things. But when we sat in a workshop and discussed communications, it never included setting up this room. It just didn't. It didn't include setting up this room and those kind of things. Now, it's great that somebody's willing to do those extra things, but I'll come a little early and set it up those days I can if it would mean it would free up time to focus on some of the other communication things. So it is a drastic measure, but sometimes the only mechanism by which the full commission has is to control the purse strings. We don't hire and fire people. We don't. But we control the purse strings. It is this body that decides how money gets spent.
Commissioner Carriger?
Mr. Chairman, speaking personally, I've heard all I want to hear. I call the question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Clerk, well, I guess we don't need to do that. All in favor of the amendment? Commissioner?
I don't know how we vote. What's the yes? I don't understand the talk so much. Yes vote? We're eliminating,
what was that number, Mitch, for a month's salary?
$4,374, so we would be taking the line $52,492 to $48,118.
So yes, will be taken away. No, would be to leave the full amount.
Yes. All right. Are y'all just going to want me to do a roll call anyway? Madam Clerk, let's go to the voting screen. We're voting on the amendment. We have 8 yes. Is it 6-0, I'm sorry, I can't, 4-0, one abstained, 2 absent, and the amendment passes. All right. We're back to the resolution as amended. Commissioner Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we amend the budget to include the 5% increase in the line item for the, I'm sorry.
Page
51,400-133 on page 24 of the last packet I'm looking at. Under paraprofessionals, we increased that by 5%.
Commissioner Weaver, it would go to 41,268, 43,155. We got calculated.
Okay. So my motion would be to increase it by that, to that amount, 43,155.
Okay, I have a motion to amend, what line item was that, Commissioner?
51,400-133.
To increase that line item, how much exactly? I missed what Mitch.
To the figure of $43,155.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Wheeler, a second by Commissioner Huffine on that amendment. Do we have any discussion or questions? Questions been called? Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Now, this is on the amendment now. $13 yes, 2 absent. The resolution, or the motion passes. All right. Any further amendments to offer, Commissioner Harris?
Going back, I guess, my original comments, Mr. Meredith, I would like to make a motion that under the 52,100, line 105, that his increase of salary be 5% in line with all the other county employees, not a 10%, which is double the raise that our county employees are getting. And I would point out that, you know, he's making close to 100,000 now, and you've got a lot of county employees that are making 20 that are going to get 5%, which is 1,000. And, you know, at 100,000, he's getting 10,000. I would just say that we move that to 5% in line with the rest of the county employees.
All right, do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Edens. Let's move Mr. Meredith's salary from 10% to 5%. Do we need a number for that? Alistair, just 5 or you need?
I think it would help the Director of Accounts and Budget so that he's not the one left trying to determine that. You've got the line items on the rest of them, if he knows them. That would be my thought.
The line item. Yeah.
Sorry, I just said you're in shock, y'all.
52,105.
52,105 is the line item number.
No, it's 52,100-105.
Oh, 52,100-105. All right. What page number is that, Commissioner Wheeler?
31.
31, in case anybody wants to look at that. Commissioner Huffine?
To the dollar figure, if I'm looking at this right, the year-over-year change is 9,544, that would be at 10%. That number would be 4,772. All passing.
All right.
Confirm that. I'll look at that correctly, calculation.
All right. All right, any questions or comments before we vote? Questions been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 10 yes, 2 absent, 3 no, and the motion passes. All right, are there any further amendments to offer? Commissioner Jones?
I have a question, about environmental court cleanup. Where is where's Mr. Francis' salary?
It is, if you look, I believe it's page 20, somebody else asked that question.
Page 28?
28.
Yeah,
Environmental court cleanup, his salary is line 189,
other,
60,000.
okay. And what was the justification for a 13% raise for Mr. France?
That's what he asked, that's what he asked for.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Is that, there's a rumor that there's gonna be a vacancy there first of the year. Mr. Mayor, can you?
Sure.
Okay. So again, to keep us, we don't need to talk about an individual. This is an open position as of July 1. That doesn't mean, I'm not trying to stop, I'm just saying we don't have to talk about an individual, which we don't need to do.
Well, in that case, we're looking at a new hire, we probably don't need to consider a wage increase. Just leave it at what it was set at. Yes, I will make a motion that we eliminate, the raise completely from line, whatever, line that is, 189, page 28.
189.
51,750-189.
Oh, there it is.
There may be, I think there's a 3-digit number in between there, isn't there?
It's a zero, it's a separate project code, but you're fine with that number.
As far as, do we know what, close to what that number is, Mitch? As far as the raise part, I mean, you said 60,000, that's all I know.
It was 53, but.
53.
You know, you did provide a 5% COLA, so, 53 or 53 times 1.05.
Do you want
Okay.
to apply the COLA rate?
All right,
That's what he said.
all right.
I would not apply a COLA raise to a vacant position. And that can be determined when the position is posted. But I would leave it at 53 even. That's my
Right.
motion.
Okay. Do you have a second? Second by Commissioner Harris. Discussion or any further questions? Commissioner Edens?
If I can I ask what the change may be? The expected change in the position?
It's just vacant, it'll just be vacant when he leaves. And it'll be 53,000 is what it would take it to, Commissioner Jones, isn't that correct?
53.
Yeah, it'd go from 60 to 53. All right.
All the questions?
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 2 absent, 1 no, the resolution passes. we have any further amendments to consider before we go back to the resolution 220603?
I have one more question.
Yes, Commissioner Jones?
I noticed there's a vehicle budgeted in environmental court. I'm assuming that's something that Mr. France wanted. Is that something, can anybody speak to what that's for? Why we need to leave that, or if we need to leave it?
Mayor?
There's like a $35,000 environmental court vehicle cost. Is it a brand new vehicle, or what, like, what are we buying with $35,000?
Is it a replacement?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
All right, are we all done and in on amendments? Do we want to consider the budget as amended now, or do we want to? Question's been called on the budget as amended. And that's resolution 220603. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. We'll be voting on the budget as amended. We voted on so many amendments, it won't even switch over to vote. Yes. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? All right, the budget is amended, we're voting on now. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 12 yes, 1 no, 2 absent, and the resolution passes. Next item is resolution, oh, this is you, Commissioner Wheeler, I'm very sorry, I wouldn't want to.
Before you leave, may I ask a question, Mr. Chairman, just to confirm?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. With respect to resolution number 3, and I was just making sure that the clerk had what that office needs for the minutes. But before we leave tonight, I want to be sure, it sounds to me like there were 4 amendments, which will be reflected on the resolution. But do we get, I think, another set of numbers back from the Director of Accounts and Budgets on any of these resolutions? Will any of the numbers on resolution 220603 actually change, maybe in the exhibits?
I think if they made adjustments to the spin, to the lines.
Yes, sir.
That the exhibits would change, as would the face of the resolution.
Very good. I just wanted to make sure so that we don't prepare a resolution that's inconsistent. We'll work then with Mitch on that. Thank you, Mitch.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Our next resolution is resolution number 22-6-04, a resolution fixing the tax levy for Washington County, Tennessee for the fiscal year effective July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. This is on page 126 of your packet. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, announce the vote. 13 yes, 2 absent, and the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Chairman, before I introduce that resolution, I probably should have said this, but I do want to take a moment to say that, we have managed to do this again this year without an increase in taxes, and I think we ought to acknowledge that. Our next resolution is resolution number 22-6-05, a resolution adopting the budget for Washington County, Tennessee for the fiscal year effective July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. This is found on page 128 of your packet. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval to start discussions.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion?
Call for question.
Mr. Chairman, if we might need to get, I don't know if I can incorporate the changes that we just made to the expenditures by reference to be able to not go through each of those individual changes again.
And you say that the budget will reflect the adopted budget.
Or the budget would reflect the changes
Made to the,
through the
made to
appropriations.
the expenditures during the meeting, is that covered? Made to the expenditures during the meeting.
Yeah, as approved in resolution 2206.
Okay, even better.
All that, this is just a compilation of all that stuff.
For the clerk's sake, should I restate that motion?
It would probably be a good thing.
I would move to approve resolution 22-06-05 with the changes the commission made to resolution number 22-6-03.
And Mr. Chairman, I think just for sake of good order, the entirety of the budget book will not be the exhibit. It's just the budget itself, which I think starts on page 15 or 16. Mr. Meredith prepares this budget book, which is a compilation, but it includes other resolutions, and that's not what's being approved with resolution number 5. So it would just be the budget that's being attached. I think that starts on page 14, but I would defer to the mayor and the director of accounts and budgets. Yes, sir. This budget book includes draft versions of other resolutions, and those are not being approved in resolution number 5.
That's correct.
That's right. So it's just the budget.
Approved would be what would be split in.
Just the budget.
In the final document, it will have the approved resolution 2206-04, which is sitting in here now. But it will be the approved resolution, not the draft. So essentially, the pages from beginning of page 2 to the end will essentially change for those.
So it's the expectation then it be in the entire budget book with approved resolutions, numbers 2 and 3 and 4. In the past, I think it had just been the budget, and then you did the budget book later. I just want to be sure we attach the correct exhibit to it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll attach the full budget book with the signed resolutions for the other ones as well this year. That'll be, if that's the will of the commission and the recommendation, we'll figure out a way to get those bundled and make them all one attachment.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I can clear that and just say, and with this, to add to the subject to that I just gave you, and to include the approved versions of all resolutions.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler.
That's great. Thank you. We just need to know what to attach.
So that's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Fitzgerald, you seconded that motion, correct? Is there any discussion or questions?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 1 no, 2 absent, the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Chairman, I closed my agenda. That concludes,
Is that everything for you?
that concludes everything on the budget, yes, sir.
All right.
I guess the new items, if you choose.
I guess I'm gonna have to get those, huh? All right. All right, our item, we have no items under old business tonight, but we do have a couple that's come up. It just needed to be quickly addressed, and I know you trying to balance out Monday's agenda, which is huge. Some of these, the first one to consider was Resolution 220606, is a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with the Washington County Board of Education regarding energy efficient energy efficient school initiative loan program. I think you remember we done this back some time ago, and it agreed on this. This is really just to enter into the agreement, correct, Allison? Is
You
that?
previously approved the entry of the agreement that the school board brought to you, and this is a supplemental interlocal requested by the Director of Accounts and Budgets to confirm how the payments will be made to debt service. Does that make sense? This is an entirely different agreement, but it's one that describes the housekeeping or internal management of those payments being made.
All right. Commissioner Wheeler?
Move for approval.
Motion made to approve, second by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Huffine. Yes, Commissioner Harris?
I know the school's here. I got all this, like I say, I got this budget last night. I just want to bring on, I don't know the difference in it. I know my time's short. I don't know if anybody else noticed it or not. And I'm not saying this, I don't know the format, but the format they use is so much easier to read. You all don't know if I'm the only one, but you got that last night there. Your all's format is very good. You specify how many employees you have in each line item. I just want to thank you for that, because it was, getting the budget the night before we got to vote on it, that made it so much easier to me. And maybe in the future, the county could, I don't know if it has to be the format we're using, but maybe look at their format, because it was very, very easy for me to figure out.
All right. Anything else?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 1 no, 2 absent, the resolution passes. Next item is Resolution 220624, is a resolution claiming lost revenue under the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA rule, the final rule dated January 6, 2022, and effective April 1st, 2022, for calendar year 2021.
You need a motion?
I do.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve the resolution. Is there any questions or discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 13 yes, 2 absent, the resolution passes. The next item is Resolution 220625, is a resolution authorizing the Capital Projects Fund spending for the purchase and installation of new gutters at the Washington County Jonesboro Library. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? Questions been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, announce the vote. 13 yes, 2 absent, and the resolution passes. Seeing this is a special called agenda, we have no further business to conduct. Do I have a motion? Already done that, yeah.
So long ago, excuse me.
We have no further business to conduct. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Harris. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. And we're adjourned.